The original term came in the late 80s when somebody threw the insult at me, coming out of a fun pub in the golden era of fun pub culture in the Northwest. And somebody called me a council house movie star, and at the time I was raging. But years later, I thought, I am a council house movie star. I'll actually claim that, I'll have it. And it kind of stuck in, ingrained in, you know, the Google box up here. And I thought, and that's how it started to come about.
I thought maybe you'd come under here and go right over. Well, it's part of my research as well. What I'm interested in is working with performativity and identity. And talking to Mark through some of his ideas, I could see a real opportunity for me to explore that end of my research as well, working with performance artists, performers, on notions of identity, because the film itself is actually, to all intents and purposes, quite autobiographical, and the process, the way that it was developed, was devised through some meetings and workshops, and then just working on some ideas that Mark had.
It started that in contemporary dance culture that I was in, I was being made to feel old. I didn't feel old, but the culture I was in, I started to just feel displaced. And started then to look at the ageing performer and ageing performance culture, and started to write about it. And then started to gravitate from contemporary dance and ageing dance culture, and then start to look at my friends and my history of drag and performance. And that's how Council House Movie Star, basically the initial ideas started to come about. And I was getting tired of the youth-driven culture in the UK and the oversaturation of youth agenda. And I thought, well, what happens to these people at 35 plus, 40 plus in dance culture? Where's the support and the longevity to continue, and where do these play? Because sometimes you end up in a state of flux.
We built the set, and then we worked on scenarios around the set. There wasn't a script as such, but we worked it into a form of narrative, and through that I think Mark was so taken with the look of the set that I think he felt he wanted to do something more with it.
I'm pretty much used to working very tightly to a script. Especially at the BBC. So this was doing all the things we tell the students not to do. We showed up without a script, we showed up without a storyboard, and we just went for it. So we kept saying to them, this isn't the way you should do it really, but you can actually get a lot from working that way rather than to a set script. I think a lot of directors work like that they have the sort of the skeleton of the scene set out, and then it sort of happens in front of them.
Well, firstly, I think Mark had quite a lot of ideas, and he had a lot of stuff as well. A lot of he's collected numerous unusual items over the years. There was a bit of a background that her heyday was supposed to be in the 60s, so we had this slightly the bedsits retained that feel, but we are in a contemporary time, so we're not tied to it period style. And we just did a lot of research, looked at a lot of films, TV shows, and got really into things like vintage wallpapers, interesting props, dressings, paintings, fabrics, and went from there.
Still recording. Are you ready? Action.
I wrote the script, secured money, and developed the character Gale Force. And then we started to work with Olivia Dumanseo with the set designs, then a set construction person, and then it took place in Stockport in Manchester in an old warehouse, which was quite fitting really because of the aesthetic of the council house in there, and it was just great. And that's how it started, and the film process came around that. And then I started to think, well, wait a minute, this set could actually then be transported and put into a different space, a gallery, So my writing started looking at the displacement of drag culture in unusual or unlikely avenue spaces, and how do public react to that when it's removed from that safe distance of theatre performance, the fluffiness of the camp, you know, palaver of the drag culture, and then you're actually not that, you're actually welcome into my world, and now you're here amongst this drag queen, wag queen, whatever she wants to be called these days. So that's how it started to shift from film. So basically it was page, screen, away from stage, gallery. You've been to Lidl for this?
Mark kind of thought that would be an interesting part to the film, that people can also, in an immersive way, experience the bed sit. And then for the installation, what's quite nice is it's kind of grown. So we've taken the bed sit itself as the basis, and then we go into these other zones that are a more kind of fantastical exploration from the bed sit. So for example, like the toilets, you then go into this odd toilet world based in the middle of a disco, and everyone can sit on the toilets and watch the film. And again, some of the other spaces kind of have taken from bits of the film, bit of the bed sit, but kind of grown into something more theatrical and fantastical.
I think Olivia did a lot of the groundwork, so I've just sort of helped along with some research and sort of spoken to Mark about his interests and things that he'd sort of like to pick out, sort of more of his personality and Gale's personality, and sort of mixing them and sort of having this sort of realistic basis like wrapped up in this sort of these odd sort of dreamscapes and ideas. So just sort of being involved with helping develop those areas like drag heaven and the cinema, and then sort of ideas for the entrance and things.
Well, the audience experience that some days Gale will be home and Gale might be drunk. Gale might be reenacting a OMO Washing Powder moment in the 1960s. Gale might be singing Una Paloma Blanca on her karaoke. She might be watching episodes of Upstairs Downstairs or Nearest Dearest with Hilda Baker. She might be on the toilet. She might be in an absolute rage. We don't know, it depends what day you're in, what mood she's in. Other days it will be the international drag artist Cris D'Bray, who will be accompanying Gale and reenacting their routine. I love that word, routine. It's fabulous. Let's get your routine out. And doing a turn from the 80s, doing a double act. So that'll be coming on some days. Other days I think it's Gale's social worker, Dawn Patrol, and Bezzy mate Donna Reah. She'll be in, and she has got a couple of nude cleaners that come round once a fortnight to help her, some of the guys off the local council estate, and they're happy to do it for a tenner or a bag of whiz. It has evolved because I've also been collaborating with Pete Bennett, the artist, fine artist, and he's been capturing me in different stages and capturing Gale Force in her different stages of life, and then putting these paintings on in the gallery. We're looking at the death of drag, the ageing performer, in one space, immersing yourself into Gale's dirty realism of the council house and her world and her everyday activity and people in her life, and then transferring that into another space, which is the cinema.
When the sun shines on the mountain and the night is on the run, it's a new day, it's a new